Valentino Rossi and Marc Marquez's 2015 clash still reverberates around MotoGP a decade later. Though the infamous contact was at Sepang, it really started with Rossi's press conference accusations about Marquez and his conduct in the previous race at Phillip Island. Here's our take on Rossi's conspiracy theory, plus what actually happened in their eventual collision, all taken from our 2015 Revisited podcast series, available exclusively in the Race Members Club.
He's still kind of his usual charming Rossi self in delivering this very mean theory about a rival that is, I mean, I'm definitely not a fan of the way he's done it. And I mean, we'll get to in Sepang as to whether it was maybe the best way to play it or not. Everybody talks about Rossi, master of mind games, etc., blah, blah. Well, we'll get to it. Masterful gambit, sir. But it's so difficult for me because you have to be logical, and I just don't think Marc is an amazing actor, and he looks genuinely like, what did you just say in the press conference? Like, he looks absolutely bewildered by the suggestion. I understand feeling weird about that race. I don't begrudge Rossi that, absolutely. I've watched it and I was like, you know what, a lot of things had to be really, really perfect by Marc for this to be an orchestration. Like, there's too much suspension of disbelief on a lot of these things. But when you look at the final lap and Marc does a 29.2 and nobody in the rest of the field does a 129 anything, everybody in the rest of the field is 130 or lower, you can be like, what is this? Is this how it, why is it like this? I think that's a normal question to ask. It's just, we immediately went from, like, if I was in the press conference and I felt that way, I would have said something like, I watched it and it was a weird race, and like, maybe, I don't know, maybe I felt like Marc was playing with us, and it feels like in the current title battle, I don't appreciate that so much. It feels like that's skewing it, but also that's his prerogative when he has so much pace. Maybe that's how I would have put it. I wouldn't have put it, there's a dastardly conspiracy that is immediately obvious to everyone, and also Marc has been lying all these years about having my poster on his wall, and immediately make it super personal. Again, we'll get to it. We'll get to as to how well that worked out very, very shortly.
The whole poster on the wall thing is like real time machine back to plant evidence stuff. Like, it's there, we've seen it, calm down.
I think there's two halves of this: the conspiracy theory about the race and the personal stuff. The conspiracy theory about the race, right? We love the drama. I love it when they snipe at each other. There was a time at Valencia a few years ago where Aleix and Frankie Morbidelli should have just dropped the gloves because they were just going at it in the debriefs. Every debrief, it was like, this guy does this, and no. And it was like, oh my goodness. And, there was the time when Marco Bezzecchi said some stuff about Marc Marquez, and he's since been like, oh, I was immature then, blah, blah, blah. So there's the drama, and the drama is great. And as Val said, you've got these Italian journalists who are kind of like maybe egging him on a little bit, going, go on, like, tell us more crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of funny. The personal stuff, for me, I come at this from a perspective of a newer fan. So I see Marc Marquez as this lovely little squishmallow, funny little guy. Oh, isn't he cute? Like, oh, lovely. Bless him. Obviously, that's not necessarily the full picture. But, like, I just think that dig, which he must have known. That's such a personal thing to say. Like, that's so mortifying for somebody that was one of your heroes to say that about you publicly. It's just like, that is so awful. And I just think he could have done the whole conspiracy theory. Great bit, without needing to kind of be like, well, did he have my poster on his wall? So I thought that was kind of maybe a step far. But the rest of the scrum, watching it, you're just like, this man's just waving around these bits of paper. It's just like comedy. But obviously it's later becomes less amusing.
I've got a little bit of a theory on this. Now, I think Marquez doesn't invite trouble in this sort of scenario as such, but Marquez is sort of hard to read sometimes. And like, when 2024, when he got himself on the factory Ducati for 25, it wasn't exactly Machiavellian as such, but it was a little bit. And it was very single-minded, very straight down the line. Okay, yeah, I love Grassini, everything's great here. Yeah, there's other riders around. I'm getting on that factory bike. That's what matters. I don't care who else has to get kicked out or what the other consequences are for the team I'm with right now or anything. That's the bike I need. I'm getting myself on it. Ducati are going to just fold for me because I'm the greatest. And I do think that's how he went about that particular shuffle. And he did it, I wouldn't say he did it he didn't pull the wool over anyone's eyes with that, but he was steely, straight down the line, quite hard to read in it. And I think Marquez has often in his career, less so now he's won the title again, come back from all the trauma, but early on, quite hard to read, also very high profile. Add that to the fact that Rossi, I think, does his best work when he's got a bitter personal rival. I think that brings something out in Rossi that really empowers him and genuinely makes him faster and better. He is driven by venom. What he was doing with Max Biaggi, Sete Gibernau really kind of pushed him on, and he loved it as well, and he thrived on it, and everyone around him thrived on it. He hasn't been able to do that with Jorge Lorenzo. It's just fallen a bit flat. He hasn't even really gone at it wholeheartedly. And maybe he just knew Lorenzo was that bit quicker, or Lorenzo was that arrogant in himself he wasn't going to get knocked down by anything Rossi did anyway, or people just don't care about enough about Lorenzo, don't get motivated by Lorenzo loyalty enough to make it even worthwhile. But he hasn't done that with Lorenzo properly for whatever reason. And now he's got this seed in his head about Marquez and the definitely strange Phillip Island race. And it's like part of him has just run with it and gone, this is what I need. I've got my new Gibber now. I've got my new Biaggi. And this time the bonus is they're genuinely really, 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 really good. And they're a threat to my legacy. And I don't know if it's conscious as such, but I can see how he's jumped on the chance to get furious. Simon.
I don't understand how Jorge Lorenzo wasn't a bigger rival to Valentino Rossi, because he's an egotist and at this point in his career, a complete asshole. And that should have clicked. He's the closest guy to Max Biaggi. And it should have been so good. And it wasn't. This is Valentino Rossi, who made Sete Gibernau the loveliest man in the world into a bitter rival just by saying, you're going to be the guy that I hate now. And everyone went, okay, that's cool. Even though Sete is lovely. And then it didn't work with Lorenzo. And then he found a victim, plaything, partner in crime, whatever you want to call him. He found Marc and was like, this might work. Let's make this a storyline.
Rossi's explanation afterwards is that he is trying to slow Marc down to massively compromise his exit onto the long straight that leads into the final hairpin. As they run out wider and wider and wider, Marquez falls. Contact has clearly been made. Was it contact bike to bike? Was it contact from Rossi just booting his rival off the bike, as some camera angles and Marquez and Honda suggest? I'm going to sit back now and let you three pick apart what happened. Simon,
I actually believe him. I actually think he was just trying to run him off the track, because I don't think Valentino Rossi's stupid enough to get caught on camera kicking someone else off their motorbike. I'm not saying that he's not capable of it. I'm just saying that he's not stupid enough to get caught doing it. And he was obviously going to get caught doing it because he knew at this point, with all those overtakes that they just made, that they were on camera. I think he did try and run him off track, that he got it a bit wobbly and a bit wrong. And he's kind of, by instinct, his foot's come off the peg and it's looked like a kick, whatever. Let's be honest, Marquez was already in the process of falling off. Rossi is to blame, I suppose, in that he was deliberately trying to run a rival off track. But we have seen people try and deliberately run rivals off track before in racing. That it's not nice, but it happens. But I don't think he was trying to crash him. I don't think he was trying to kick him off the bike.
I think it was I'm with you on the particular kick part. If you watch the slow-mos, the leg does get hit by Marquez's bike, as Marquez very reasonably tries to turn in and participate in the race and make the corner, because his only other option is to go into whatever, the grandstands, the runoff, etc. Which is clearly, it is very obviously Valentino Rossi's idea is, okay, I've had enough of you. I'm going to make sure that you do not participate in this race anymore. Whether that's by you falling down or whatever, or just ending up off track where you cannot accelerate, and then I'm gone. That's fine by me. I do not think he kicked him, or at least deliberately kicked him, or I say I don't think so, but I have to, cards on the table. I don't care whether he tried to kick him off or not. The crime is done, and the punishment already fits the crime that has been done. Well, fits, but the punishment is relevant to the crime that has been done. Whether an extra kick happened or not, honestly, I know that's maybe ridiculous to say because you've caused somebody to crash, but the thing is, what he was doing already implied the very high possibility that Marc is going to crash here. He clearly did not particularly care whether Marc stays on the bike or not, and made the point that he needs to, by hook or by crook, remove Marc Marquez from this race. And I imagine that emotion arrived into his head 100% unbeatable immediately when he makes that overtake at turn 11. And then Marc goes around him at turn 13 and like cuts him off on entry into the corner, at which point Rossi's like, okay, he's going insane into every corner every time I'm overtaking him. I have to do something about this. I have to take matters into my own hands. And maybe from his side, if this was so blatant, then maybe I can get away with just removing him from the race and then having race direction go, well, both of them were doing silly stuff, so, it's heat of the moment. Unfortunately for him, in none of those previous laps, Marc deviates from what you would describe as normal racing. However fast or slow he is, however smart it is for his actual race position, whatever he's doing, all of that looks like defensible racing, whereas what Valentino Rossi does in that moment is an explicit targeting of an opponent to remove him from the race. Again, kick or no kick, whatever.
That's probably Rossi's problem at this point, isn't it? It's that Marc Marquez has not been dumb Marc Marquez. He's actually been quite clean about it. He's not been the guy that, turned up in Argentina a couple of years later and just went completely apeshit on the bike. He's been fairly clean about it. But I would love to know what went into Rossi's head whenever he realized what had happened, when he looked over his shoulder. Because I agree completely with Val in that I don't think he was trying to kick him off the bike or knock him off the bike, but I don't think he particularly cared whether or not Marc crashed. And I'd love to know if there was a moment where he thought, oh, that's probably not good. Or whether or not he just thought, okay, Mosquito squatted, let's try and hunt down the guys in front. If he expected that there would be consequences or not.
It looked to me at the moment when he slowed down that the contact was inevitable. Whatever the contact was, I agree with Simon and Val that the kick is, I think, really an over-egging of the situation. There was contact that was it looked like there was always going to be contact. There was contact between Rossi's knee and something. I don't know what that is, but I don't think he's gone boot guy off bike because A, as Simon said, I don't think he's stupid enough to do that. And B, a MotoGP bike is not a light thing to just nudge with I just nudge it like a football.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that the other problem for Rossi was after the contact, he then spent quite a long time having a good look. Oh, is he definitely gone? Oh, he's definitely gone. Nice one. So that
quite incriminating, isn't it?
That was the thing for me, was if the contact had happened and he hadn't looked back, it might have been a bit might have looked more. Not that it was not accidental, but it might have looked a bit less sus. But it was the fact he then takes a good I'll just check in. Oh, I'll just check again. Oh yeah, he's definitely gone. As the others said, I think it was just a bit I don't think he really cared what happened. He was just trying to get rid of him. Like, piss off! I'm going. You stay there. Leave me alone. Yeah.
Very funny that you called it incriminating, Matt, because there's an incident coming up that will be important that I imagine we will discuss. That is Moto 3. That will be relevant to this whole, where the guy at fault does not look over his shoulder or at all check what happened. And that's more incriminating than actually checking in my book. But we'll get to it.
Interesting. I hadn't planned to get to that today, but you're welcome.
We got it.
You can bring that in whenever you want, because I
it's
know
when the penalty points come in. That's a penalty points thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're welcome to do that then. Yeah, good point. I think he kicked him, and I think it does matter. Now, I'm going to backtrack very slightly. When I watched it at the time, I very strongly felt he kicked him, and I thought it did matter. I tried to challenge that preconception when rewatching it for this series, and I wasn't totally swayed from my previous 2015 opinion, to be honest. I felt like at that point, with all the build-up, with the state that Rossi allowed himself to get himself into over this, the degree to which he'd let himself down already on the Thursday by going into this complete paranoid mad spiral, and then Marquez races him like this, and then they're losing all this time to Lorenzo, I found it completely believable that Rossi, at this end of his career, with this much at stake in terms of how big he's made this rivalry now, would just lose it in sheer rage and go, even if I have to boot you off the bike, I'm getting rid of you. And I think that takes it another step. That would, if that was the case, take it another step beyond, I'm just trying to edge you out, I'm just trying to delay you, even I'm just trying to take you out with my bike. I think booting someone off the bike is worse. I thought at the time that's what it was. I've got a bit of doubt. The camera angles, in fairness, the camera angles are not conclusive. Do I think Rossi was furious and at that point crazy enough to do it? Yeah, I do. I actually do. When you've had those 4 laps, I think that is the case.
Well, and there's contact made against him initially, which again is totally his fault because of how he approaches the corner. Because when you do this kind of thing to a rival, whatever, in a motorsport race, and they try to turn in while you're going straight in the corner instead of taking the corner line, there is going to be contact, and it is kind of going to be initiated by the guy on the outside, but only because they have to go somewhere, so they might as well go into your side. So there is that collision that I think if it was an intentional kick, it's more like a pain response, like, ow, what? And then go away finally. And that also does that is more forgivable to me. This is kind of why I don't care, because it's not the kind of incident where he came in, I think, definitively premeditatedly to pick up his leg and taekwondo him off the bike. I think it's clearly not that. So at that point, it's just, I don't know. I might be wrong. I'm not sure that's the most popular view among. I'm not really endearing myself to either the Marquez side of this or the Rossi side of this, because the Marquez side is, of course, he definitely kicked him, and the Rossi side is he did not do anything and is an angel. So
I think that's the problem, though, is that most people will have a completely one-sided view of it, and they are completely unwilling to hear what the other side might be. I also think, Matt, what you said, having the motive to do something and doing something are really, really different. Just because he might have been pissed off and angry and fed up and at the end of his tether, but also maybe I just don't want to believe that he would do that deliberately because of everything else he's done. Maybe part of me doesn't want to tarnish his whole legacy and all his achievements with him kicking someone off a bike, because that is such an awful, ludicrous, stupid thing to do. Maybe that's why I don't want to think that that's what happened. But it's such as Val said, if somebody hits your knee with a hammer, your knee moves.
Yeah, true. Yeah, fair.
So
yeah.
if Marc Marquez's head hits your knee is probably going to move. If Marc Marquez's handlebar, brake lever, whatever hits you, your knee might move without you moving it. I just think saying it, he did that, he kicked him, it's just not, there is not evidence it is not beyond reasonable doubt for me that he did that. And that's why I just can't support that.